Have you ever felt like the world is moving on without you, leaving you behind in solitude? You try to connect, but the bonds seem to break, and the silence grows louder. It's as if Allah is pulling you away from everyone and everything. But why, my dear brothers and sisters? This isolation is not a punishment, it's preparation. Allah isolates the ones He chooses to refine, protect, and guide them to something far greater. Today, we'll explore 7 profound reasons why Allah isolates the chosen ones, reasons that carry a wisdom most of us fail to see. Before we begin, reflect on this. What if this loneliness you're feeling is Allah's way of calling you closer to Him, away from the noise of the world? Let's find out why Allah is isolating you and how this could be the greatest blessing of your life. Number 1. Isolation to protect your heart. Have you not noticed how, when you're surrounded by people, your heart can easily get distracted? Caught up in fleeting conversations, worldly comparisons, or even harmful influences? Allah sometimes pulls you away, my dear brothers and sisters, not to punish you but to protect your heart. Think of a precious gem. To preserve its shine, you keep it away from anything that could scratch or dull it. That's your heart. Allah sees its potential and knows that being around certain people or environments could corrode its purity. Imagine this. You've been surrounded by friends or colleagues who subtly mock your deen or encourage you to stray from it. You start to compromise just a little here, a little there. But then, suddenly, those same people drift away, leaving you confused and hurt. Yet in hindsight, wasn't it Allah saving you from something that could harm your connection with Him? It's hard to see at the moment, but this distance is His mercy, a chance to reset, purify, and align your heart solely with Him. Let this isolation remind you of the ayah, "So do not weaken and do not grieve, and you will be superior if you are true believers." Quran 3:139. The loneliness you feel is actually a space for Allah to fill with His love, His guidance, and His peace. Number 2. To refine your character. Have you ever noticed how, when you start working on yourself, the noise of the world seems to fade? It's as if Allah is deliberately removing distractions, unnecessary chatter, and even the people who might not align with your path. Why? Because isolation is Allah's way of refining you. Think about it. When you're surrounded by noise, whether it's constant opinions from others, meaningless distractions, or even unhealthy relationships, it's nearly impossible to hear your own thoughts, let alone connect deeply with Allah. Solitude strips away these layers. It forces you to confront who you really are and what truly matters. Let me ask you, have you felt this before? That in the quiet, uncomfortable moments of being alone, you suddenly see parts of yourself you didn't want to face? Maybe it's a habit you've been ignoring or a weakness you've been hiding. Allah isolates you not to punish you but to help you grow. Take a moment to reflect on this. The Prophet Muhammad often withdrew to the cave of Hira before receiving revelation. Those moments of solitude weren't just physical isolation, they were spiritual preparation. In the same way, your moments of isolation could be Allah's way of preparing you for something greater. But let's be real, it's not easy. Sometimes, being alone feels heavy, even painful. You might wonder why people who were once close to you are suddenly distant. Let me tell you, not everyone is meant to walk with you on this journey. Some people are seasonal companions while others are there to teach lessons before stepping away. And that's okay. Remember this. The discomfort of solitude is temporary, but the clarity and strength it brings can last a lifetime. It's in this stillness that you learn to depend on Allah fully without relying on anyone else. You start to see that your worth isn't tied to the approval of others, but to your relationship with your Creator. Number 3. Isolation strengthens your relationship with Allah. Have you ever felt like no one truly understands what you're going through? Like no matter how much you try to explain your struggles, the responses never seem to reach your heart? This feeling isn't a coincidence. It's a divine invitation. When Allah creates moments of isolation in your life, it's His way of gently pulling you closer to Him. In times of ease, we often lean on people, friends, family, or even worldly comforts. But in solitude, when those supports are stripped away, you're left face to face with the one who has always been there, Allah. Now, let me ask you this. How often have you turned to Allah with your whole heart, your tears pouring out, only when you felt there was no one else to turn to? Isolation compels this deep surrender, as though Allah is whispering, "Come to me, let me be enough for you." But let's clear something up. This isn't about separating yourself from the Ummah. Islam is about unity, and the strength of our community lies in the bond of believers. What we're talking about here is a spiritual journey, a personal transformation that allows you to contribute to that unity in a stronger, more meaningful way. Look at the life of the Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him. He faced moments of profound loneliness, whether in the cave of Hira on the battlefields or during the hardships in Makkah. Yet those moments weren't about division, they were about preparation. Through those experiences, he emerged as the leader who united the Ummah under the banner of La ilaha illallah. Your isolation is no different. It's not about distancing yourself from others permanently. It's about temporarily stepping back to recharge, realign, and reconnect with Allah. When you return to the community, you do so with a stronger sense of purpose and contribution. So, if you're feeling alone right now, let this be a reminder. This isn't about separation, it's about strengthening your foundation. And when your foundation is strong, your ability to unite with and uplift others becomes even greater. Number 4, the isolation is a training ground. You may have noticed this pattern. Every time you're about to grow, something or someone is removed from your life. Maybe it was a friendship you thought was unbreakable, or a support system you leaned on for years, and now suddenly it's gone. Have you ever paused to ask yourself why? Isolation isn't rejection, it's refinement. Allah removes distractions and attachments that could cloud your path. It's His way of sharpening your focus and teaching you lessons you couldn't learn in comfort. Think about Prophet Yusuf, alayhi salam. When he was thrown into the well, he was isolated and stripped of the support of his family. But that isolation wasn't abandonment. It was preparation. In the silence of that well and later in prison, Yusuf, alayhi salam, was being molded into a leader. By the time he emerged, he wasn't just a man. He was a man of extraordinary wisdom, resilience, and faith. Here's a question to reflect on. What if the challenges you're facing now are your training ground? What if Allah is preparing you for something far greater than what you can see today? Let's be honest. It hurts. Losing people, facing silence, and feeling forgotten can leave you questioning your worth. But remember, diamonds are formed under pressure, and the finest swords are forged in fire. The struggles you face in isolation are the very tools Allah uses to refine you into a better version of yourself. Don't rush to fill the silence. Don't force connections that Allah has chosen to remove. Instead, use this time to look inward and upward. Ask yourself, what is Allah teaching me through this? This shift in perspective turns isolation from a punishment into a gift. When you come out of this phase, you'll realize something profound. The solitude wasn't to break you. It was to build you. Number 5. Allah's plan requires patience. Have you ever felt like your life is in a holding pattern, as if the progress you crave is just out of reach? Maybe you're watching others move forward while you seem to be stuck. It's frustrating, isn't it? But let me tell you this. Allah's delay is not His denial. Sometimes, He places you in isolation because He's preparing something far greater for you. The waiting period isn't wasted time. It's an essential part of the process. Think of it as a cocoon. Just as a caterpillar must endure, stillness to emerge as a butterfly. Your isolation is a phase of transformation. Prophet Musa, alayhi salam, experienced this before he was called to lead his people. He spent years away from Egypt, herding sheep in the wilderness. To many, that may have looked like a step backward. But in reality, it was the exact preparation he needed to become the leader Allah destined him to be. Here's a question for you. What if the waiting is where Allah is working the most in your life? What if this time is about strengthening your faith, sharpening your skills, and clearing the distractions that would have held you back? Patience doesn't mean passivity. It's an active trust in Allah's timing. It's about using this period to build yourself spiritually, mentally, and emotionally so that when the moment comes, you're ready to step into what Allah has planned for you. Remember, Allah knows the perfect time for everything. What feels like a delay to you is part of His divine design. The pause isn't punishment, it's preparation. Number 6. Isolation refines your intentions. Sometimes being alone can feel unbearable. The silence, the solitude, it can make you question everything. But here's the hidden truth. Isolation is where your intentions are purified. When you're surrounded by people, their opinions, judgments, and expectations can cloud your heart. You might find yourself doing things to seek their approval, even unconsciously. But when Allah pulls you away from the noise, it's an invitation to reflect and ask yourself, who am I doing this for? Is it for people or for Allah alone? Take the example of Prophet Ibrahim, alayhi salam. When he was isolated from his people for his unwavering belief in Allah, his solitude became the foundation of his strength. He wasn't concerned about pleasing his community. He was focused solely on earning Allah's pleasure. His isolation wasn't a punishment. It was a gift that allowed his faith to shine brightly. And isn't it the same with us? Think about it. How often do we get caught up in trying to meet the world's expectations? How often do we let others' opinions dictate our self-worth? In isolation, Allah gives you the chance to break free from this trap. Here's a thought. If no one was watching, would you still pray with the same dedication? Would you still give charity? Would you still strive to improve yourself? Isolation reveals your true intentions. It strips away the distractions and leaves you face to face with your sincerity. So, the next time you feel alone, remember this. Allah is refining your heart. He's preparing you to act purely for His sake, not for the applause of people. And that is where the real power lies. Number 7. Isolation prepares you for your unique role. When Allah isolates you, it's not without purpose. He's shaping you for a mission that only you can fulfill. The silence, the loneliness, they're tools in His plan to build something extraordinary within you. Let's reflect on the story of Prophet Yusuf, alayhi salam. Thrown into a well by his brothers, sold into slavery, and unjustly imprisoned, his isolation wasn't random. Every moment of solitude prepared him to rise as a leader who would save nations from famine. His time away from the world wasn't a curse, it was training for his destiny. And what about you? Do you ever feel like the path you're on is so different from everyone else's that it's almost unbearable? Like no one understands the weight you're carrying? That's because your journey is unique. Allah isn't isolating you to break you. He's isolating you to prepare you for a role that no one else can fulfill. Perhaps you're being prepared to be the pillar of strength for your family, or maybe you're destined to guide and inspire your community. The world needs individuals who have walked through the fire, faced the depths of loneliness, and emerged stronger, wiser, and more compassionate. Think about it. The strongest steel is forged in the fiercest flames. Your isolation is not a punishment. It's a process of transformation. It's Allah's way of saying, I'm shaping you for a greater purpose. So, the next time you feel disconnected or alone, remember that this isn't the end of your story. It's the start of a new chapter, one where your resilience and faith will shine more brilliantly than ever before. As we've explored together, isolation isn't a punishment. It's preparation. It's Allah's way of elevating you, refining you, and bringing you closer to Him. Every tear, every moment of loneliness, every silent prayer, it's not wasted. It's all part of a divine plan, one that's shaping you into the person you're meant to be. Remember the Prophet Muhammad, who spent time in the cave of Hira, away from the noise of the world. It was in that solitude that he received the first revelation, the moment that changed the course of humanity forever. Your isolation, too, could be the prelude to something transformative. If this video has resonated with you, I encourage you to reflect in the comments below. Perhaps a simple phrase like, "Ya Allah, help me find strength in my solitude," can inspire not just you but also others who are on this same journey. And before you leave, consider watching the video suggested at the end of this one. It delves into another life-changing topic that I truly believe will complement everything we've discussed today. Click on it and take your next step toward understanding Allah's wisdom in your life. May Allah guide us all, strengthen our faith, and make our trials a means of drawing closer to Him. Ameen. Until next time, Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.